Hello again, welcome to Nitro Talk. Today we're going to take a look at this Novarossi BT-21 SBK. This is, as you can see, a short stroke, 5-port, 3.5cc or 0.21 engine with an intake chamber or a boost chamber. Yes, I did make this label with my P-Touch, but this is the same information that was on the box, the original box for the engine. So let's first, while we're on the subject, take a look at that boost chamber, intake chamber. Now, I'm going to have a video coming up on nitro gimmicks. And this, I'm going to discuss this in it. Is this a gimmick? A lot of people will say yes. Is it worth using? That's the question. This video isn't about the boost chamber. We'll get into that in another one. The boost chamber does do something that is desirable. Okay, we'll talk about that in the future. But this one, most boost bottles, intake chambers, kind of looks like a CO2 cylinder, and it's mounted away from the engine and connected with a piece of fuel line. This one is built into the rear of the engine. So the back plate for the engine has the boost chamber built into it, so that when you put the back plate on the engine, you then connect the boost chamber to your port right beneath the carburetor, and that's what you do. Now, speaking of, I did run this engine for a while years ago. This is actually, might have been one of the, if not the first Novarossi I ever owned. I actually ran this in buggy, and I didn't like the fact that when you put the fuel line on, you either had to do it real short to where it kind of did an extreme angle once you put it on, or it would make a big U and it laid against the exhaust, which I didn't like. So I made this. I took a couple, these are basically the nipples from pipes. It screws into the pipe there, and then you put your fuel line on it there. So I took a couple of those and basically made this little L, not a L, U, to keep it as tight in to the engine as possible so it didn't lay on the pipe when you're using it. So that's the boost chamber, and like I said, we're going to talk about boost chambers and other nitro gimmicks, again up for discussion whether or not it's a gimmick. Some people will say yes, others will say no. We'll discuss the boost chamber then. Well, I've got the crankcase in my hand. Let's take a look at that. Standard steel bearing. This is certainly not the beginning of Novarossi. Novarossi goes way back to the early nitro on-road days, but for the stuff I have, general stuff that a lot of people nowadays will have, this is one of your older Novarossis. I would say early 90s, early to mid 90s is when this came out. You can tell, one of the ways you can tell, it's got the carburetor. This is actually a little metal plate in here with the logo on it. You could get in there and peel that out if you wanted. Why would you? But that's a little metal plate in there inserted. Later carburetors have the logo molded into the plastic. So that's an early Novarossi 3-needle carb there. Standard head button on this, not a turbo. As you can see, your copper washer gasket on it. Like I said, it says on the box here, this is a 5-port. Again, always a pleasure to look at Novarossi sleeves. Great work. You don't see any goofy stuff going on. Just some nice clean cuts, nice clean flow work. Good all around. Now this engine. Now let's pause a second. Go here to the crank. As you can see, has been cut. This engine, when I got it, was in Offna Monster Pirate. I came across this Monster Pirate, took this engine off of it, and so it had a cut crank with bolt-on clutch adapter instead of your standard full-length crank, which is what came originally on this engine. Someone cut this. It's not a factory short crank. This actually is, for as early as this is pretty good. You got a nice fang on there, nice opening, good and wide on the passage, cut on the leading edge there, and again, just nice, beautiful, smooth cuts inside there. Your standard good Novarossi work. What didn't we look at yet? Now that's another, man, I should have had this ready. Another cool thing about this engine, I collect the old radio control car action and radio control nitro, radio control car action and radio control nitro magazines. I have a ton of them, and I go through them a lot. I look at them, I enjoy reading them. One of the things you'll always see, it seems like pretty much every issue of these old magazines from back in these days have this Mugen ad in it, and as you can see, this SBK plays a starring role. Boom, boom. It's all over these 2 pages down here in the buggy. It's the same buggy, but so I'm always going through looking at these magazines. I love reading them. I'm always seeing this Mugen ad, and I'm always seeing my SBK there chilling on the pages. But yeah, that's the and it's the same version with the boost. They made this with the boost intake chamber, boost bottle, with and without. It's the same version with the boost chamber, as you can see the little line there. But yeah, that's the SBK in the magazine. So let's take a look at that head. It's got a unique shape. I really like anything that is not standard. I like your oddball stuff. I like anything different. I really like the fact that it's got that shape and SBK down there on the lower fin. I think that's a really cool head, and I'm really happy that I had the sense when I ran this. I did not run it with this head. I ran it with an aftermarket Nova head to keep this in good shape, which it still is. That's very nice cooling head. It's got O-rings on. Oh, that's what I was going to do while we were here talking about this. Some videos I'd take an engine apart. I was kind of going to put this one back together. So you got these 2 halves. This is your pinch bolt for your carburetor. One is going to be non-threaded, and the other is going to be threaded. The threaded side, your screw generally goes on the left side, facing the engine's left side of the engine. Now I forgot which track. So the one with the screws with the threads goes on the right side. And to make it easier, always throw your carb in first, and set up for buggy, it'll be slide on the right, outlet on the left, So I'm going to put the carburetor in, and then I'll set in the pinch bolt with the cutout going towards the front, towards the carburetor. Slides right on in. Then you can put in your screw. And this engine will probably never run again. It'll just sit in my collection, so I'm not setting this up ready to run or do anything. It's really just, you know, putting it back together so it can go back in its box and chill. Next we'll put the crank in. Get that all the way forward. And then next goes your, oh yeah, I think I was getting into that. I got distracted on something else. When I got this, I got this engine, pulled it off in a Monster Pirate. And when I pulled it open, it was pretty, it had been neglected. And so there was some gunk inside, and it kind of discolored the rod. But it was just surface stuff. And it had good compression, still has good compression, still runs good. It'll still make some power. Slide it right in and put it on like that. Take your sleeve. One thing, always do spin your sleeve. Don't just try to push it in. Spin it as you're pushing it down. Make sure it doesn't get snagged up. Then spin your crank until the sleeve goes into the cylinder, and then you can keep spinning it and push it right on down. There's an indexing pin. You can see the place for it right there, and then there's the matching pin on the block, so you just slide it down to where they match each other. Okay, so that's that. As you can see, it's still got some life to it, probably been pinched. We can go ahead and put the head on. Novarossi make it simple by putting the dots towards the exhaust. Now this, I'm pretty sure, just like all other Novarossis, had the flathead head bolts, but I believe I swapped them at some point for 2.5mm hexes, probably to make it like all my other engines. Whereas, you know, nowadays I would almost consider that sacrilege. You don't want to mess with a Novarossi, you know, you want to keep them all original. But this one's got 2.5s. Missing. Trying to not to block the camera, so you're just looking at my hairy arm. And there we go. Always go cross. Don't never go side to side. You want to spread the force. And then what I do is I screw these opposite two down to where they contact but not tight, and then I do the other two to where they're down but not tight, so they're all four holding it in place evenly. It's held down evenly now. And then I'll go back, tighten the first two across, and then tighten the second two. There is our head on. We can go ahead and throw this on here for safekeeping. And we will put on that boost bottle. As you can see, it says up right there. Novarossi did this on a lot of their engines. And this still has the original flathead backplate screws. Make Make sure they go in nice and straight. You know, never want to strip or cross thread anything. Always be careful when you're working with these engines. They're not cheap, and if you're good to them, they'll be good to you. So, you know, be careful. Make sure this isn't something I would use thread lock on. I don't use thread lock on engine screws. That's another story for another time. So anyways, I'm pretty much got this back together. We will have another, like I said, I'm going to be doing that nitro gimmicks video here very shortly. And I got a ton more engines I'm going to be doing videos on. And I would love to hear some comments. Anyone has any suggestions on content that they would like? I've got a plan to do a starting video for the 3 main starting methods, your roto start, pull start, and bump start. Do a, you know, all 3 at once, help you get them started video. And I kind of just had that on there, and that was pretty much how she sits in the buggy when she's ready to go. That's the BT-21 SBK by Novarossi, classic. All Novarossis are classics. Hope you agree. Y'all have a great day. See you next time.